matter. Honorable Alice Wahome is also the last coordinator. The moderators shall be Herine Kabita and Jerotich Seii. Can you start off, moderators?
Thank you so much, Madam Beth Michoma. My name is Herine Kabita. I welcome you to the third session. This panel is going to discuss the steps taken by Parliament to enact legislation to operationalize the two-third gender rule and the petition that the Law Society and other actors petition the Chief Justice to advise the President of the Republic of Kenya to dissolve Parliament. I'm going to welcome my co-moderator, Madam Jerotich, to read the bio of our panelists, then we take it up from there. Jerotich, she's joining us online.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you to the LSK for organizing this very important conference. My name is Jerotich Seii. I am an active citizen. I focus on social justice issues. I focus on energy justice and also humanitarian assistance during this time of COVID. I'm really pleased to co-moderate with you today, Herine, and looking forward to an interesting afternoon. Kindly permit me to go quickly through the bios as we welcome our panelists today so that we can move them on to the questions. Now, we have Honorable Gladys Shollei with us this afternoon. She is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and a certified public secretary. She is the current former member of Parliament, Uasin Gishu County. She holds a Bachelor of Laws from the University of Nairobi, a Master's of Laws from the University of Cape Town, and a Master's in Business Administration from JKUAT. She has served as the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, CEO of the National Council of Law Reporting, and Deputy Chief of the Independent Interim Electoral Commission. She's a member of the Law Society of Kenya, FIDA Kenya, and various other organizations. Thank you so much. Now, my very old friend and comrade and colleague, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, very happy to have you with us this afternoon. She is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. She studied law at the University of Nairobi, LLM at New York University, a diploma in human rights and humanitarian law at Lund University, Sweden. She is currently a member of Parliament for Suba North Constituency. She has worked with the Office of the Attorney General, at FIDA as litigation counsel, at ICJ as gender and justice officer working with judiciary, L'Etoile International as program manager, human rights and governance. She is the founding director of CRADLE, founder of Maiden Institute on Leadership, Law, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship. She undertook pioneering work actually on treaty-based rights of women and children in East and Southern Africa. Honorable Millie Odhiambo is the sponsor of 6 bills: Counter-Trafficking in Persons Act, Victim Protection Act, Treaty Making and Ratification Act, Child Justice Bill, Assisted Reproduction Technologies Bill, Reproductive Health Care Bill, was a member of the Pan-African Parliament, third term in Parliament. She has served in 10 committees and as Vice Chair, Justice and Legal Affairs, this was before, and Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee as Vice Chair. Honorable Odhiambo also served as one of the founding mothers and fathers of the Constitution, having served in the 27-member Parliamentary Select Committee on the Constitution, and has published 3 political leadership books. Karibu sana Mheshimiwa. We have Honorable Kaluma, who has been very brief in his bio. He is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and a partner at the Homa and Kaluma Advocates. He is a member of Parliament, Homa Constituency. Karibu sana Mheshimiwa. We look forward to interacting with you this afternoon. Then we have Honorable Mutula Kilonzo Jr., who will be with us only briefly this afternoon. He is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, a certified public secretary, and an associate of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, the Kenya branch. He is currently the senator for Makueni County. Senator Kilonzo Jr. started his legal career in 1995 as an apprentice at Kilonzo and Company Advocates. After graduating with honors at the Nagpur University, Honorable Kilonzo Jr. did his pupillage from 1990 to 2001 before becoming an associate at the law firm in 2001. Mutula Kilonzo Jr. became a managing partner at Kilonzo and Company Advocates in 2007. The senator has vast experience in both criminal and commercial law, spanning over 40 years. The senator is a past president of the Rotary Club of Langata and is a member of the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, the Law Society of Kenya, Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, and a member of the Institute of Certified Public Secretaries of Kenya. Karibu sana Senator. Last but not least, Honorable Alice Wahome. Mheshimiwa is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and a commissioner for oaths. She practices in the area of civil, family law litigation and conveyancing. She is a member of the Law Society of Kenya and Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA. She is the current member of the National Assembly for Kandara Constituency and a member of the Delegated Legislation Committee of the National Assembly. She has served as Director for Center for Multi-Party Democracy, Director for Retirement Benefits Authority from 2003 to 2006. She is a Vice Chairperson of FIDA Kenya, that was from 1999 to 2000, a Council Member of the Law Society of Kenya, that was both from 1999 to 2000, Chairperson, NAC Kenya Kandara Branch, National Deputy Secretary. She is a strong defender of equity and gender equality, a strategic partner for advocacy and defense of the rule of law, constitution, democracy, and good governance. Honorable Wahome strives to achieve social justice in all her undertaking in her work as a parliamentarian. Karibu sana, Mheshimiwa, karibu sana to all our panelists this afternoon. Over to you, Herine.
Thank you so much, Jerotich. My first question will go to Honorable Mutula Kilonzo Jr. because he may leave at any time. My question is this. There is a history of failed attempts of implementing the two-thirds gender rule. We all know the Samuel Chepkonga bill, the Duale bill, the Sijeni bill, all of which have failed to get deliberation before the parliament for lack of quorum. Do you think there is reluctance or resistance in implementing the gender equity principle? Honorable Mutula. Okay. I will direct the same question to Honorable Gladys Shollei, if you could answer the same.
Thank you for having me. I think, yes, in a lot of concerted efforts to attempt to implement the two-thirds gender rule. And this starts as far back as at the time of the Constitution, the passing of the Constitution itself. Because at that time it was felt that the Constitution did not have a mechanism to be able to implement the two-thirds gender rule. And the late Senator Mutula Kilonzo, member of Parliament, did, as Minister of Justice, have the First Amendment bill immediately after promulgation of the Constitution. Unfortunately, thereafter, instead of the Attorney General ensuring that they push forward that particular amendment bill, he instead went on the methodology of attempting to get an advisory opinion from the Supreme Court. And that is an effort that actually it could have been done immediately at that time. But unfortunately, he went to the Supreme Court. The argument was that they needed time, and then the Supreme Court then said, "You shall count 5 years after the promulgation of the Constitution," which was then going to take us to 2015 of August. And that's what happened. And even then at that time, they still attempted to get more time, but the women's movement and other organizations, like-minded organizations, insisted that it should happen. When it didn't happen, they then went to the High Court. And at that time, Justice Mubugu gave them 40 days, gave the Attorney General 40 days to ensure that they did table the bill, and that was the first dual bill. But what happened here, and yes, Parliament is at fault, but I think political parties should also take full responsibility, because when you look at the manifesto of all political parties without exception, from ODS to Black Kenya to Jubilee, they made a commitment to implement the 3/3 gender rule. So if there was political goodwill from the top leadership of the political parties, my party included, it would have, there was nothing simpler than looking each member and saying, this was our campaign pledge. We owe it to the people of Kenya who elected us to be able to pass this in Parliament. And it can happen. If voters are always good to go to a certain election, especially when it is something that the people promise the people of Kenya. The second point is, every single member of Parliament, every single member of the cabinet, every single member of the county assembly, and the head of state, the deputy head of state, all took the oath of office and swore to respect, uphold, protect, and obey the Constitution of Kenya, so help me God. They say that we have them. So the message that they are sending now is that actually that oath of office was meaningless, because this is not a women's issue. It is an issue of obeying and respecting and protecting and upholding the Constitution of Kenya, as they promised the public when they took their office. So, and unless people realize how criminal and dishonest that is, and shame our leaders for it, and unless there is political consequences and political penalties or a political cost to it, then we are going to continue thinking that the Constitution is just a piece of paper, because we have not done that. If you look at the composition of the, so it's not just Parliament that appeals, look at the composition of the cabinet, the CASs, the cabinet assistant secretaries. Again, they fall short, because out of 29, and out of the PSS, for example, there's only 7 of them, and out of the 22, when we should actually have 15 at least. Same thing for the CASs. In fact, it's only cabinet for the purposes of winning the seat, and that we actually have met the threshold. And remember, the cabinet did not meet the threshold by the head of state's own volition. It was because Justice Obuto, the late, God bless his soul, actually put it in his judgment that the head of state was in contravention of the Constitution. So I want to know those members of the judiciary. In fact, if anyone has succeeded in upholding the Constitution through this process has been the judiciary, because all the pronouncements have come from the judiciary, not from Parliament, not from Cabinet, not from party leaders.
Thank you so much, Honorable Shollei. My next question will be to Honorable Millie Odhiambo. There is the representation of special interests group law amendment bill before the National Assembly 2019. In the objects of the bill, it states it is giving effect to Article 100 of the Constitution. Article 100 states the marginalized group, which include women. There's a defense that by National Assembly deliberating that bill, they're actually giving effect to the other articles, Article 81B of the Constitution and Article 27. What is your comment on that? Is it a good defense?
Am I on?
Yes, I think you're
on. First of all, let me comment on something that Gladys, my colleague, Honorable Gladys Shollei, has said, and then I'll come to that. I want to disagree with Gladys when she says the judiciary has done a good job and Parliament has not done its work. Actually, I think Parliament has done its work. And Parliament has done its work because it has pronounced itself. Parliament can pronounce itself by saying yes or by saying no. And there are many ways in which Parliament can say no. One of the ways Parliament can say no is by lack of quorum, and it can also say no by raising the numbers and negativing a proposition. So Parliament has pronounced itself very clearly on this issue, and so taking it back and forth with the to Parliament is like now we are getting into an era of boy-girl relationship, trying to woo each other. This is not how you run constitutions. Constitutions are meant to be implemented and meant to be followed. That's when you build a culture of constitutionalism. Parliament has been given 10 years. We have spoken to it. I think it's up to the judiciary to do their work. It's no longer up to Parliament. And I think when the judiciary says that we are giving time, if you actually look at the milestones in this process, I don't know how many bills we have had. We had the attempt by the late Mutula Kilonzo, may God rest his soul in peace. We have Cheponga, we have Duale 1, we have Duale 2, we have Sijeni, we have now Gladys, we have the 100. Very soon I'll bring another one because now it's fashionable to bring bills on 2/3. And that's why I'm telling you, I think it's becoming a joke in Parliament, and we should be looking, at Parliament. And that goes back to my same question of 100. If you listen to my bio, I was one of 27 members who sat in the Parliamentary Select Committee. And I'm sorry I missed the presentation of Martha. And we sat with Martha. And so I understand actually how we even came up short this procedure. And the reason why is because if you actually look at the history of the Constitution, when we actually situated ourselves at Bomas, no, it wasn't Bomas, in Naivasha, because the country had come through a very difficult situation during the post-election period, and the entire country was looking at 27 of us to give a solution. And I remember people using the famous word, looking for the white smoke. And everybody was worried as we went through chapter by chapter. And even the most difficult chapters, including the form of representation, we managed to go through the parliamentary system. People thought we would never get any agreement on it. And we sailed through it in one day until we came on the women's issues, or gender issues. Let me say gender because it's not just women. When we came to the gender issue, then we could not move. And then I remember to date that then the divide was not party. The divide was not age. The divide became gender, and which is such a tragedy, because when you're talking about equality, it's not about about a fight between men and women. And it was sad because at that point it became men and women. And so we negotiated, because our constitution is both a political and a legal process, a constitution making process. So we negotiated less than what is actually contained in the principle. And the understanding was to take 47, and then in the next parliament, incrementally, have more women, join. Now, unless you have a formula, that's the reason I opposed the original constitution, that unless you have a formula of getting this marginalized group, then we are still just doing the dance, unless there's a formula. Either you are telling me we are amending a law to say that in terms of political party action, then we'll have what you call the party list, or mixed member proportional representation, because through that, then you are very sure that there will be numbers. If you don't talk numbers, because there are people who are hardliners on these issues, and not only on women's issues, when you are dealing minority issues, then there will always be hardliners, and that is the reason why you are even having this stalemate in Senate right now on resource allocation, because it talks about minorities versus majority. And you never put issues of minorities on a referendum or on a bill as a standalone. it can only pass when you make it move, either as a you know, part of a bill that contains other issues, or you bring a different formula through which people will not lose. Because then if you come with a party list, then it means that, for instance, if ODM is campaigning, then they will come up with a list in an area, and they are saying in this area we will have, let's say Homa Bay Town, we will have Honorable Kaluma, Suba North, we have Honorable Millie, and then people vote for the party. And why that is good is because then if parties field women, strong women in their strong areas, then they can come through. But when you have a bill like the 100 without such a formula, really it's nothing. It will not be implemented, and it actually has very aspirational things. It's like socio-economic rights. Very aspirational, and unless you provide a formula, you can't realize. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Millie. My next question is to Honorable Kaluma. Kenya is the only East Africa country yet to establish an affirmative action for gender representation in parliament. Is it time, in conformity with Article 27, Sub-Article 8 of the Constitution, that we actually have these affirmative actions in place?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and thanks to fellow panelists, including my niece and senior in Parliament, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, for going ahead. The two-third gender law is similar to the law on bigamy, is similar to the law on FGM, and those other laws which are meant to re-engineer the thinking of a society. It is a law put in place to secure that the society approaches matters of gender representation other than in the way traditionally they have believed to do it. And so, unlike those other laws I've mentioned, any law meant to re-engineer the societal attitude and approach to matters, it will always be difficult to implement. It will always be difficult. So let me start by saying that Parliament has made some very good attempts. The challenge with the realization of the gender quota in our representation, both at the level of elective representation or in appointive offices, is not a failure of Parliament. You must see Parliament as an institution being required to rectify ex post facto a failure by the society to meet gender quota in an electoral process. And I wanted to be clear instead of, beating around it. The problem that we have with the realization of the two-third gender quota is arising from the very architecture of the Constitution. And so long as we are not going to amend those provisions of the Constitution, we may dissolve Parliament, we may change the leadership in Parliament as many times as we want, but the people of Kenya will still return an imbalanced membership. Why do I say so? If you look at the provisions of Article 27 of the Constitution, look at Article 38 of the Constitution, especially beginning from sub-Article 2 of Article 38. Look at Chapter 7 on the electoral process. What you see the Constitution talking about implicitly is essentially the system of election we call first past the post kind of election. It's an election system in which everybody is allowed equal right, not only to register to vote, but also to vote and to seek election. Once you are elected, of course, the process of election is a function of democracy in the society. So see where our Parliament is finding itself. As Kaluma have been elected to that Parliament, my niece Honorable Millie has been elected to that Parliament. You then end up there and then you are told you are not properly constituted, while the process of your constitution was not your making. And therefore, I want to agree with Honorable Millie Odhiambo, and I'm saying this with confidence, because in the current team of panelists, I'm the longest serving member of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. Because I think since the new constitution and with the beginning with the 2013 elections, I've served in Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, and I continue to serve in that committee to date. And so all these attempts at amendments to the Constitution to realize the two-third gender principle have, to some extent, passed through my hand as a member of that committee. I can tell you in those various endeavors, we've gone to very many countries across the world. Honorable Millie will confirm. We've been to the larger Europe, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand. We've been to Canada. We've been to the United States. And let me tell you, if I were to stop at those, we are doing better than all those I've counted in terms of our current numbers after the new constitution. We've been to Rwanda, we've been to South Africa. Let me therefore agree with Honorable Millie Odhiambo that if we are seeking a solution to the realization of the two-third gender principle, which to me is a Bill of Rights issue, not easy to amend as people think, then we must adopt the electoral system in our constitutional provisions, which adopts the situation that is operational in Rwanda and in South Africa. And that is the mixed proportional representation or the party list. And that is where the problem is. You cannot tell Kenyans that you'll elect anybody and you have the choice as a democratic participant or as a citizen to elect whoever is on the ballot paper, and then seek at the same time to meet definite quotas in that random electoral process. So what South Africa has done, what Rwanda has done, and Honorable Millie will confirm Rwanda is doing very well. In fact, the ladies are more. Yes. Is that in those electoral regimes, they vote for political parties. And I've observed some of their elections, both in South Africa and Rwanda. They are on the party list approach. It is the party which is voted for. Once the parties are voted for, based on the proportion of votes they get, they are apportioned to numbers of members of parliament or, count your provincial representatives, strictly based on votes. And what the parties are required by the electoral laws and processes, constitutions of those countries, is that the parties present a list of the people they would wish in priority to be in parliament if they were to win. So that, and that list is normally zebra. Honorable Millie will tell you. In South Africa and in Rwanda in particular, ladies are required to be even more. And you start as a political party by a lady. So you have a zebra list of a lady, a man, a lady, a man, a lady, man, or vice versa, or a lady, man, a lady, man, a lady, man. And then the political party presents that list to the electoral management body before the election, so that when the time comes, the line, of course, is drawn. That is the approach, unfortunately, we may want to consider. Either strictly that, Honorable Millie, in my view, or a mixed approach where you allow people to elect some people freely, and then you put some in that kind of arrangement. That way we will succeed. If we don't, we are going to hit, the dead end always. And I can assure those who are listening that even if we were to dissolve parliament today, unless we change the legal landscape, the Kenyans are going to return to parliament, an imbalanced parliament, and of course the circus will continue to the end. That is my solution. In terms of affirmative action laws, there have been challenges. There are pushes, but I think efforts are being made, and I'm happy at the proposals I'm seeing at Parliament today. So there are efforts being made. And I can say in terms of adherence to human rights, in terms of the Bill of Rights, both in terms of the richness of our constitutional documents and the strength of our learning and civic literacy levels, I think you certainly putting aside those cultural hindrances and difficulties, you cannot say we are doing very badly. We are doing very well. We are doing very well. I thank you.
I will not agree with that.
I also don't agree with you.
Yes.
I'll ask my next question to Honorable Alice Wahome. She's joining us online. She's on? I believe she's on.
I'm ready, yes. I'm ready for the...
Yes.
I hope I'm on. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mheshimiwa. My question to you is this. We have petitioned the Chief Justice to dissolve Parliament. In our petition, we have listed the various failed attempts of Parliament to enact the gender rule. Is it time we dissolve Parliament pursuant to Article 261, sub-Article 7 of the Constitution?
Okay, thank you very much, Jerotich. Now, I'm sure you have the entire list of the bills that have come to Parliament without success, and have listened to Honorable Kaluma and Honorable Millie and Gladys, and I want to say that I'm grateful to be part of this panel over this very key and important subject. I will take you back, like Gladys had mentioned, that the first bill was brought by the Minister for Justice, Mutula Kilonzo, and he was hoping that it would succeed. But the executive went around that, as Gladys said, and they started filing, they filed a matter in the Supreme Court for advice on it. And I think the excuse was what Haruma is alluding to, that, you know, we are finding it complicated because we have an electoral process that is competitive. What shall we do? We need an advisory. And when the Supreme Court expressed itself, it pronounced in certain terms that by 2015 August, then Parliament must do what it must do. Come up with a mechanism to be able to implement Article 81 and Article 27 of our Constitution. Obviously, the court had all these arguments put before it, but it found that if Parliament expressed itself through a legislative framework, it was going to be possible. And clearly, Parliament must have the solution. That bill did not then proceed. That was for 10th Parliament. Then we came to 11th Parliament, where I also served as a member, of Parliament. I was not in the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, but I was very well involved in the efforts by the women, because apparently it becomes a women issue, even to ensure that Parliament legislates or comes up with a framework. So nobody should tell you that the male colleagues we have in Parliament, this particular Parliament and last Parliament, including the Honorable Member Kaluma, who then served in the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, that is the relevant committee that would facilitate the House to be able to come up with the legislation. And therefore, in that Parliament, last Parliament, we had the bill for Judith Sijeni in the Senate, and we also had a bill by Honorable Duare, that was Duare 1. We did everything that you would expect that you would do for lobbying. We talked, we discussed, we held teas, we went every other corner that we felt that there is power in terms of numbers to bring to Parliament. And there is influence, but we failed. I want to say that we still did very well, because we raised a total of 195 votes in favor of Duare 1 bill. Obviously, Judith's bill had been withdrawn because she couldn't get quorum in the Senate in 2015. When Duare bill came, when we lost that, another attempt was brought back by the women, because we came together with the Attorney General, and we agreed we needed another bill urgently. Because of course there was pressure coming from the judiciary, and petitioners had already engaged the court. And you see, when you look at Parliament, it has never gone to court and said it is not possible to implement or to come up with a framework. Parliament has been seeking for time. And the President of the Law Society statement and his summary of the events and the orders that have been issued by the court are very explanatory, that Parliament, together with the Attorney General, because they both have been defendants in all these cases, have been giving excuses or seeking for time to enable Parliament to come up with a legislation. So Parliament itself has never gone to court and said, look, it is not practically possible. It has been saying, we will work, come up with bills. Of course, then the onus becomes that of each individual member of Parliament, but as a House, we have a responsibility. So that bill now, Duare 2, we visited every political party leader from Uhuru to the left. And I am saying we went to Raila Odinga, we went to Uhuru Kenyatta, we went to his deputy, we went to Musalia Mudavadi, we went to Kilonzo Musyoka, we went to Amani Party, we went all political parties to ask that they support by talking and discussing this with their members of parliament. And you know what? The second vote, we got 174 votes. We couldn't even raise the enough quorum because you needed to at least raise 233 to start a quorum. So the process in parliament has been tedious, has been dishonest, has actually never been a commitment. There has never been a commitment by the owners of the political parties. Currently, the Jubilee Party has 174 members of parliament. The ODM minority party has about 80 members of parliament. Those two political parties, they are members of parliament. If they were to be whipped and agree that we need to have this legislative framework passed, we have 252 members of parliament. If you bring these other smaller parties and independent members of parliament, and most of them are aligned to either minority or the majority party, we would pass this in a spirit of one single afternoon. I wanted to say that because we visited all these political party members, heads of parties, and you know the body language, you can scan through their statements and their responses when you lobby them. We knew that their hearts of those political party leaders, their minds and soul were not together with the bill. We have heard of excuses like costs. We have had excuses, parliament is too big as it is now, as it is composed. But I want to ask Kaluma, because I'm not going to ask him, but I want to say that actually Honorable Kaluma, Millie Odhiambo has been part of the process and she has put in a lot of work. We were key in moving the other members and explaining, and at one time we became the facilitators of all those processes in outside parliament. But like Honorable Kaluma has never believed in this, as he has said, it is a textural problem. But you know, when you look at Article 81, and then supported by the Bill of Rights, Article 27, it's very clear. All you need is Parliament to understand that they have a legislative duty to pass this bill. And what was required actually is basically to bring in on board a similar provision or article like 177, where county assemblies have been able to nominate so that they can get the principal right, the two-thirds gender principal right. It's okay in the county assemblies. A similar article was in the Duare bill, which was lost. And there is no commitment. Nobody should. And you know, and I have said, I don't think we shall get it through Parliament. And to that extent, I may agree with Millie that maybe Parliament has done its work. I wouldn't want to use the word that it has done its work. I would like to say that Parliament has actually failed to do what it needed to do. And I do not see now or future this Parliament, for example, passing this unless it is dissolved so that they can understand. Indeed, I can tell you from the Speaker of both houses, from the highest top executive, nobody believes that Parliament would be dissolved. You know, there is this illusion that the Chief Justice may not be able to make such an order. And therefore, that could be what Millie Odhiambo is speaking to. That is the Chief Justice going to actually do what the Constitution requires him to do? Because the executive has not supported, members of Parliament are not willing, the speakers are also, you know, the speakers have a big influence in the manner in which, and members of Parliament always tend to want to know where is the speaker's, position, because sometimes it is right, it's okay to be right with the speaker. So, and the speakers are not for this. We have been given, what do I call it, lip service by all the major institutions that would make this bill pass. And therefore, it is not a question of architecture. Honorable Kaluma, you know that we can have a provision like Article 77. Of course, that will increase the house to maybe 400. But you don't tell the country that they can choose that this cost is very high when we are not choosing other costs that may equally be high, like maybe the BBI or like the referendum or like the monies that have been lost through the cancer by people eating COVID money. We have lost money in big projects. Those are the huge costs that are not supported by the Constitution. If you have more women under Article 177, replica of Article 177, and you just need to amend Article 81 and Article 97 and 98, and have women, even today, we can have this parliament extended. So your question was, is it time that this parliament should be dissolved? Of course, as an individual, I would lose if parliament was dissolved. And possibly I would be slow to say yes to that question. But in defense of the Constitution, and every member of parliament has sworn to defend, to protect, to promote the Constitution, there is no way I should answer in the negative. I should be saying, yes, this parliament should actually be dissolved. It is time to dissolve the parliament. Once the Chief Justice dispenses with his function, dissolution, recommending dissolution, because he's supposed to advise the head of state, I think the rest should be left with the head of state, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya. And I can tell you, I think that the head of state would dissolve parliament. If the Chief Justice were to do what he should do, let's then move from that, then corner, then we now leave the baby on the lap of the president. If it is dissolved, yes, we go back to the ground. What is wrong with that? Those who will be elected will come back. Because parliament has never believed that it can be dissolved. Because, of course, we behave sometimes like rock, we have behaved like rock many times. This is one particular case that the male colleagues, and even some of the women, unfortunately, also are not clear that they need more numbers. Because, we have also had a challenge that while we are lobbying male members of parliament, we are also lobbying women. But you see, there was a certain fear by women because like the Chepkonga bill and the Aaron Cheriot bill were attacking the women representative seats. And therefore, that created a lot of fears, both at the Senate because of the nominated seats and also at the National Assembly. Aaron Cheriot was actually recommending that we remove the women seats. I think Chepkonga was also coming up with similar, and there you can understand that I believe that women are more committed to this particular cause than our male colleagues. So I have answered my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Alice Wahome. I'll call, I'm told Honorable Mutula Kilonzo will join us shortly. I'll ask my co-moderator, is he on?
Yes, I've finally been admitted.
Karibu sana, Honorable Mutula Kilonzo.
Thank you.
My question to you is this. How do we operationalize the two-third gender rule?
First, I think there's a bill that has not been mentioned that is been sponsored by myself and Senator Faria on an attempt to operationalize the two-third gender rule under Article 81, and that is where really the problem is. And although the other speakers could not see me, I could hear them, and I tend to agree that if the leadership of this country wanted this thing done, even the mechanics would be easy. So we have just turned rings and circles around ourselves, Member of Parliament, because in terms of mechanisms of how to do it would be a constitutional amendment in terms of how you achieve it, because the fear of either adding seats to the already existing seats, whether in the National Assembly or Senate, is something that would have been done easily in terms of mechanics. But I personally think that the problem lies with our political parties. We need to revisit this issue right from our primaries to our political parties so that we don't solve this issue when we are already in Parliament. In fact, there's an amendment done by Honorable Martha Wangari, which was proposed when she was in the Senate. And in the county assemblies, they cannot commence business until the numbers are confirmed in terms of meeting the gender rule. In the National Assembly and Senate, we don't have such a rule. So I personally think, and I want to say this absolutely without any fear of contradiction, that as Parliament, we have been chasing our own tail, and we have not been serious about a proper mechanism of ensuring that we comply with this rule. Because it's a simple thing. In the Senate, you just need another 2 or 3, and you will have complied with that rule. But a better way of doing it is to go back to the primaries, like Mheshimiwa Millie had proposed, and others, that you figure it out in such a way that once we do our nominations, we comply with certain parameters. You'll ensure that we meet the thresholds. In fact, in this election, we have gone down. I acted as a special rapporteur for the IPU Parliament on this issue. And I'm embarrassed to say, while the rest of the world is thinking about gender parity, Kenya is thinking about 1/3 gender rule. The rest of the world is at 50-50. I mean, why is it so difficult for this country to appreciate that the women of this country are equal to the men? But even more importantly, that the idea of having gender parity in Kenya, because I have moved my mind from 1/3 to gender parity, is an agenda that should be carried by the men. And 90% or 100% of the people in top leadership in Kenya are men. When they want their business conducted in the Senate, they immobilize 2/3. We removed the deputy speaker. We were 54 or something. If that was a constitutional amendment on Article 81, it would have passed by end of that day. So I think that I agree with those who say that everybody has thrown this ball to everybody. You know, you throw it to the judiciary issues an advisory opinion sought by the Attorney General. At the time that my late father, and I keep the documents that he used, was proposing that amendment on the 1/3 gender rule, I'm telling you, even the National Assembly itself had a good laugh about what he was doing. They thought he was just dreaming. But this has come to haunt us. But if we were to switch off all these cameras and we sit with you, myself, Kaluma, Shollei, Alice, Wahome, and the others, in somewhere off camera, and we sit with our leadership and we say this can be done, I can assure you it will be done. Because once we have the methods, it's only that nobody wants to figure this out. And by the way, I want to say this, that the men of this country are really afraid of the women. And I don't know why. That is the reason our elections, the violence meted on women during our elections are so bad that the men are fighting the women as if they are fighting other men. It's something that I don't understand.
Women are more violent today.
The solutions are there. The solutions can be made. But on your petition, now, assuming that you wind us up, who is going to propose this formula? In fact, when I sat with the committee chaired by Senator Yusuf Haji and it has prominent lawyers, I said, why is in the question of Article 81 a big issue? We are just wondering how we are going to fill in the executive slots. We are just wondering how we are going to either expand or reduce counties. We are thinking about many things about constituencies, but nobody's talking about how can we have a country where 50% of the women in this country get 50% of leadership. We have declared as a political party, and when Gladys boss Shollei, who was my boss at some point, mentions all parties she omits Wiper. At Wiper, we are at 50%. If I am elected, it will be 50-50. 50 PCMs will be men, 50 will be women. And I don't need any legislation or a framework that needs to guide me on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll ask my co-moderator, Jerotich, to pick it up. Thank you. Jerotich.
I'm done.
Herine, you are on mute.
Yes, I'm requesting you pick it up. Pick up, Jerotich.
Herine, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much to the honorable members of Parliament and Senate who have just shared with us. I have listened keenly, and I think I want to build up on what Senator Kilonzo Jr. has been talking about, which is around the political parties. And I will start with you, Honorable Gladys Shollei. You know, political parties, as you have
the problem. Is it ours? It's ours.
2/3 gender principle is adhered to. I ask this question because if at Parliament,
We are
losing.
We are losing you.
Parties will not help.
Am I the only one who can't hear her?
We have lost her.
sorry, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We
are
didn't hear what
hearing
you
you
said.
now. Come
Oh,
again.
you didn't hear me?
Yes, come again.
I am sorry. Let me get off my video so that you can perhaps maybe my connection is not that good. So I'm going off video and I will ask my question again. I apologize. I apologize. Thank you so much to the members of Parliament and to Senator Kilonzo for your input. I just, having listened to you closely, I wanted to follow up and ask this question. And I think this question actually applies to all of you who are panelists, and I'd like to hear your feedback. I was saying that political parties remain the primary gateway to elective public office. And apart from the 14 members of Parliament who are independent candidates, all others are drawn from political parties. I would like to know what your party stand is on. I know Senator Kilonzo has just told us he is at 50-50, the party is at 50-50, but what mechanisms have your respective parties put in place to ensure the 2/3 gender principle is adhered to? Because I think indiscipline and disrespect for constitutional matters starts at the party level. If political parties are not disciplined, why should then members of Parliament be disciplined when they come to the House in terms of respect for the Constitution? So I hope you heard that question, and that question we'll start with you, Honorable Shollei, and then on to you, Honorable Odhiambo, and so on.
Thank you very much. I'm quite excited about the way the conversation is going, because when we initially started this conversation, it was discussing the fact that we have failed to enact the 2/3 gender, to meet the 2/3 gender principle, and also of the fact that there is a petition pending before the Chief Justice. But from what I listened to my able colleagues, Honorable Kaluma, Honorable Millie, Honorable others, that there are several mechanisms, several formulas, some pending or have been before the House before that have not actually been implemented. So what we should be telling ourselves, if we have failed to enact the legislation as tabled by Honorable Duale, there is nothing stopping any member of Parliament from tabling their own formula that takes into account the suggestions that have been made. There is a suggestions that have been made by Honorable Mutula. And he says there's a bill pending. There is a mechanism that has been suggested by Honorable Millie. Again, we can put that into a bill, or even if we don't put it in a bill for this, just for right now, then we are able to say this is something that's an amendment that we can make. Either should there be a referendum or an amendment that we can make, even within the existing mechanisms for amending the Constitution without through a parliamentary process. When we talk about the failure of the architecture of our Constitution, as Honorable Kaluma says, again, that can be fixed by enacting a legislation that can fix that. It may not be able to fix the full 9 yards, but at least to some extent, it can cure the problem for the moment as we await to perfect it even at the next parliament. So we are not short of formulas. That I'm excited and proud that that has come out clearly from all the panelists. And that takes us back to what Honorable Alice Wahome said. She said that the defense of the Attorney General and Parliament has never been that they don't have formulas. Their defense has always been to buy time, which is actually trickery. Because what they should be saying is, let's go lobby our members so that our members can make some amendments and be able to table a formula that is acceptable to people as we speak now. So if there's anything that this conference has achieved, is that that has come out extremely clearly. If we go and put all the ideas that have been discussed in this panel that I've been part of, I believe we can present something that is acceptable. And I think if the Chief Justice, if the defense to the Chief Justice was, we have a formula, give us another 30 days, he will give it. The court will give it. But as it stands now, the total disobedience of the court orders leaves no choice under the Constitution. The only choice is for the Chief Justice to advise the President. And when he advises the President shall dissolve Parliament. The President is not given any other choices under the Constitution. So we have to really think about that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Shollei. My question was also around political parties and what political parties are doing. So I will ask that question to Honorable Millie Odhiambo. Could we hear a little bit more what exactly specifically has been happening within your political party to ensure that the 2/3 gender rule is respected, and how that cascades or escalates to the House of Parliament in terms of the behavior of your party members?
Jerotich, could I kindly ask to be excused because I have another appointment and I'm running late?
Yes, yes, of course. Thank you so much, Honorable Shollei, for joining us. We appreciate your input and thank you for your clarity. Please have a good remainder of the afternoon. Honorable Odhiambo, did you hear me?
Yes, I heard you.
I am so sorry. This Zoom sometimes is a little bit complicated.
Thanks, Jerotich. That's our new normal. Perhaps before I respond, let me wait for the echo to go down. Okay. Thank you. Perhaps before I respond to the issue of what the parties are doing, I'd want to just comment on something that Honorable Kaluma had said, that as a country we are doing well. We are not doing well. If you are being compared to countries such as Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, Yemen, Oman, Haiti, Kuwait, Lebanon, Sri Lanka, Nigeria, Iran, Kiribati, Tuvalu, Eswatini. I think that I'm actually looking at the list of representation and look at countries that are doing well: Rwanda, Cuba, Bolivia, Mexico, Sweden, Grenada, Namibia, Costa Rica. I would want to say, and South Africa and Namibia, I'd want to say that in the history of human rights, you gave an example of America. America is a very, very strong proponent of human rights, but a very poor adherent to human rights. When I was in the child rights sector, there was a point that we knew that the most widely ratified convention, which was a convention on the rights of a child, was not ratified by only 2 countries. Somalia, because that time it had no government, and the US because it had the government. And I hope you understand what I'm saying. And because of that, America does not care whether it follows conventions or treaties. And I'm sure you know that's why they even are backtracking on issues of climate change and all that, because they're using their powers to set the rules but not to follow the rules. That does not mean we don't follow the rules because America is not following the rules. I think if, I don't know who's talked about it, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., that if you actually look at Africa and the SADC region, for instance, everybody is aspiring for 50-50. People move to parity. But when you come to Kenya, we are actually moving, we are backpedaling. And people usually ask when we go, it's actually an embarrassment for us as a country, that when we go to functions, people say Kenyans are very articulate. We always come up with very innovative ideas. Our representatives are always excellent. We are the ones who are being elected into situations and positions of authority in every place. When even when we went to Pan-African Parliament, Honorable Janet Ongera currently actually heads the East African caucus in Pan-African Parliament. And yet, when you get back home, and we'll give people all the good English, but when you get back home, we are not able to do very simple things that Rwanda can do, that Uganda can do. If you talk about in the region, actually, South Sudan does better than us. They've surpassed the 30%. Uganda does better than us. Tanzania does better than us. Somalia does better than us. All the countries in the region are doing much better than Kenya. So what is our problem? So Kenya is not doing well. Let us be honest with ourselves and compare, because a lot of times people say that, you know, in the past, whenever we gave examples of America and all, people say, no, give us African examples. We are giving you African examples. Let us emulate South Africa, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, and let us give 1/3 before we move to the parity that most of those countries have gotten to. I come to the issue of the parties. If you look at the manifestos of the parties, they are excellent. Most parties have either 1/3 or have 50%. And having started, now I'm doing my third term in Parliament, I can tell you there has been some progress, except it is extremely slow. When we started, if you look at the positions that were held even in the executive by the women in most of the parties, it was very poor. And I know in my party, the first time I think was when Honorable Jode was still there, and we went for an election in Bomas. We went through an election, and then somebody suddenly shouted, we are unconstitutional. We didn't even notice it. Then we had to actually redo the elections and remove some people in order for us to comply. But it's a good thing because since then, my party has complied with that. In terms of elective positions, we have not managed the 1/3. In the last parliament, the 11th parliament, I was the only woman elected in ODM in the whole country. And yet, we had actually the highest number of elected members. But I was the only woman elected in ODM in the whole country. Now, we have actually made some strides. Now we are 5. Now, if you were to move at that pace, I'm just wondering, if we moved at that pace, maybe we double it next time. It means next time the ODM will have 10. Then maybe next time 15. How many years will we have before we reach the 1/3? So our parties, if we use the formula that we are trying to use now, we are not likely to go anywhere. But one of the things that I want to load is that in our party, for instance, for the very first time during the primaries, because most people fail at primaries, many women, and not only in my party, but other parties, I am so thrilled that many, many women came up for the first time to run for various positions. And for the first time, women were given opportunities to actually lodge complaints. And unfortunately, most of them didn't get information in good time that money would be waived. Some women were not able to actually just raise 30,000 shillings for appeals to the party board. But by the time they were realizing, it was a little too late. But I would also want to encourage parties like my party had put a low-ranking person in charge of the gender desk. We need to get somebody with authority and mandate to make decisions sitting at the gender desk, so that when there are actually all these misdeeds that happen during the party primaries, and I'm sure Honorable Kaluma, after I went through my first elections, I was so horrified that I wrote a book about it, because this is like something from us. I don't think people know what goes on in party primaries. It's like from us, and it's not just my party. It's all parties. It's like you need to be a magician to be able to go through party primaries as a woman. I know the men also face challenges, but it is triple. What women go through is triple what the men go through in party primaries, and because of issues of patriarchy. There are men who cannot just accept that they are being led by a woman, and so they'll do anything to make sure that you actually fail. And finally, I just wanted to make a comment on the issue, because my colleagues have made, and Alice, Honorable Alice Wahome was saying that maybe what I think Millie is inferring is this. I never mince my words. I have said, and Honorable Mutula Kilonzo has said, that we are chasing our tails. So if we are chasing our tails, how long do we want to chase our tails? Parliament is done with its work on this issue, and the Chief Justice has two options: to act or to be comatose. That's the only option he has. He either acts or he will be comatose. But either way, it's nothing. It's no longer to do with Parliament. Parliament is, if you're looking for an answer, don't look for an answer in Parliament. If you listen to every person who is talking here, there is no hope in Parliament. There is no goodwill in Parliament. There is no interest in Parliament. So look for a solution elsewhere. So LSK, I want to thank President for the petition you brought. Alice was saying that we may be hesitant to have a dissolution of Parliament. I am not hesitant. I am willing and able to go and face my opponents. I don't care if I lose, but we need to build a culture of constitutionalism. Parliament has failed. Let the Chief Justice take action and dissolve Parliament.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Odhiambo. I do appreciate and respect the clarity coming from all of you, and the recognition that there has been a failure by Parliament, and that dissolution may be the only way forward. I want to change tack slightly and ask Honorable Kaluma a question, because this is something that is even juxtaposed in the current division of revenue impasse and quagmire. You know, Honorable Kaluma, BBI is with us, we have been told, and there are claims from, political players about securing women's positions, although even from the political negotiations right now within this ongoing reggae of BBI, no women are really engaging substantively, except to cheer sometimes the male politicians on. So why should the women of Kenya support an amendment, this BBI process, to the Constitution, when they have not even begun to enjoy the benefits of it, and yet they're supposed to support it? What is in it for them? So even if we were to say it's frivolous to try and dissolve Parliament, what is this that BBI, for example, is bringing to the table that women or those who have been discriminated against have to support within it? I hope that was clear, and I hope you were able to hear me.
Yes, thank you. Again, whether you will support the referendum bill that will be brought through BBI or you won't will be an individual choice under the Constitution. And in making that individual choice, my sister, you may choose to support or not. And of course, you will consider all those issues which concern you. Constitution making process is a process like any other. You consider your interest in it. My position, Honorable Seii, is that one, going the political party approach in the manner you are suggesting will not enable us meet the 2/3 gender quota. Because you are doing while forgetting the design of our constitution around elections. Remember, in terms of party nominations, largely they do them by way of universal suffrage. And our parties have their strongholds. You like it or not, you throw it to the people. And the design I'm calling first past the post handicaps will still capture you there. So the ladies will first be defeated in that universal suffrage mode of nomination within parties. Unless, of course, you are forcing parties just to directly nominate which we are to contest before the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal for very long. But remember also, immediately the parties are done with the nominations, they are not just competing among themselves. Under Article 81, going through the thread of Chapter 7 of the Constitution, they are going to compete among themselves and people who choose to run independently. So assume the party has conducted a nomination, and I believe I've done my groundwork because it is a fast past the post system and I'm popular. I still have the route of going the independent candidate direction. And I can tell you, you like it or not, in that manner, even if the parties brought, the women you are talking about, if the groundwork was better done by the male candidates will carry the day. And that is why I'm saying, let us not be here to pass the buck. Let us not be here to pretend we are being nice. I get baffled when colleagues, deeply learned in law, are saying, dissolve parliament, but they are not resigning. Why are they waiting for dissolution? I can tell you, the fact of the matter is that parliament does not fear being dissolved, because that very constitutional provisions requires and entitles parliament to give explanations as to why it has failed. And that will be given. Remember also the circumstances under which we are operating. And I want to be frank with you, because we are seeking a solution, so that we stick to the solution. Number one, we know the difficulties you have around having a general election as we speak. So the thinking in Parliament is that you have that bill there, you have a dissolution petition wherever. And number one, we know you don't have money to conduct a general election. Number two, COVID is here. Number three, the president who would be required to dissolve Parliament himself has failed to implement the 2/3 gender quota, even in respect of easy appointing positions. So he has no moral ground to defend. But number four, we also know that even if you are to dissolve Parliament, Kenyans are going to return an imbalanced number unless we take the bold step and change the design of the electoral process before. And the design is to move from this fast past the post, be it at party nominations, be it at the level of elections, to party list system. And that brings me to tell you the difficulty with that, because unlike the other panelists, I've participated in getting public views across Kenya. The other time on Duale bill, Honorable Shollei was in another sector, Honorable Wahome was in another sector, I was in another sector. Tell Kenyans outside there that you want to increase the number of the members of parliament, and they'll tell you, total balderdash, we can't accept. And this they'll tell you in those public forums. And I can tell you, in a way, I agree with them. If you go to the National Assembly today, speaking in one afternoon, honorable members and colleagues watching, we are a whole secondary school. Honorable Millie will tell you, there is no room for a member well prepared and knowledgeable in an area to put it before the House. And that is why Kenyans are already saying we are voting machines. There are times we are told you have 1 minute to speak. Before you say, thank you, Mr. Speaker, the motion, you see the red light, and they stop it at that other level. So the number is already too big. There are financial considerations. Go out during public participation and ask Kenyans to have members of parliament enter parliament in the way we had nominated MCAs to meet the gender quota. And they'll tell you we don't want that. And then I remember all the fora from North Rift that I went to Western Kenya, to Nyanza. They are saying we already have a problem with political parties nominating MCAs to meet the gender quota. You cannot tell us people are doing things that way. And that is why I started by saying that the challenge with the implementation of the 2/3 gender rule is that it is a rule required to redesign the society and the society's approach to issues. It is a top-up kind of constitutional provision. It is not a bottom-up. And this is why I think Honorable Alice Wahome was saying, so sometimes I disagree with them. I want to confirm, I've disagreed with virtually all the constitutional amendment initiatives to implement this rule in principle. But ultimately, I've agreed to vote with them, and that they can confirm.
You don't implement a constitutional requirement by amending the Constitution. And if you look at all these initiatives, they are all constitutional amendments. Look at Article 27, Sub-Article 7. Does it require constitutional amendment or an amendment by way of a legislative intervention? Says the state will take legislative and other measures. If you are going to deal with constitutional amendments, then remember that this thing is not anchored on Article 81. It owes its origin to Article 27. It's a Bill of Rights. It is not something Parliament can do. It is a referendum issue under the relevant provisions of the Constitution. So let us sit as very learned people and as a society obligated by law to do some things in public interest, to come up with a solution. And I'm telling you, without fear of contradiction, that unless we are going the party list direction, we will not succeed. Unfortunately, in our public participations, when we raise, people also tell you the messes in parties around nominations. So they say they'll nominate their relatives, they'll nominate, you know how they characterize whoever are nominated once they're nominated. So have our political parties matured to the level that Kenyans in a referendum can say we are going to allow the parties to nominate and we are going to vote our political parties? That to me is the challenge. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Kaluma, for your input. Is Senator Kilonzo with us? Is he still with us?
No, I'm informed he is not.
Perhaps.
My son?
Jerotich, I'm informed is not with us.
Okay, that is fine. So then maybe I will push it on to Honorable Wahome. And just for you also to weigh in, because you were initially the most clear saying we need to be dissolved. We have failed as Parliament. The sense I get, and as a non-legislator, as somebody who votes in legislators who are the duty bearers, the upholders, the protectors of the Constitution on behalf of the people, yes, we also have a responsibility as voters. What is your sense? I am getting the sense that the architecture, the structural issues, systemic issues are simply unimplementable unless X number of things happen. Is it really that optional, our fidelity to the? It's not workable for now, and let's be measured, let's be reasonable, it can't work. Or is this something that should be a non-negotiable absolute? And if that is the case, if it is a non-negotiable absolute, what is it that you legislators can do to make us get there? If Honorable Kilonzo Jr. says that his party has achieved parity at 50-50, what makes his party more special? What made his party able to achieve parity, and what makes other political parties so recalcitrant? So my question is back to you. Rather than confuse the people of Kenya to say this is unworkable, it can never work out, and lose the ordinary person in complicated language, what is it tangibly that you as a legislator believe we need to do, or you need to do as legislators, to uphold the 2/3 gender rule?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me first agree that the architecture of this Constitution has a gap. And that is the gap that we intended to deal with when we were proposing amendment of the Constitution. Otherwise, we would have managed this problem in a legislative framework. There is a difference between a legal framework and a constitutional amendment. And so when I listen to Kaluma, and I think the panel now and the viewers can understand the problems that we have. Kaluma has listed several of the excuses and the reasons that they have, as a parliament, male colleagues been using against passing the constitutional amendment. And therefore, you may not go very far from where Kaluma is, because he has told you about cost, he has told you about the size of parliament, he has told you you don't even have enough time to speak. Yes. But if there is not enough time to speak, let it be a constitutional parliament that is within the requirements of Article 27. It cannot just be, it is being or it has no space when we want to include the women. So I am saying this. One, the Chief Justice has a solution to the problem. And the matter is on his desk. He must move with speed. And when I say that the Chief Justice must move with speed, I am quite aware that his term is coming to an end, considering the retirement age. And therefore, and he has gone public saying that he's likely to leave around November or December. And therefore, we do not need to get this another Chief Justice. This is the time to act. And therefore, I'm saying dissolution of parliament, because we cannot continue acting. And this parliament is supposed to be now coming up with another constitutional amendment. You have heard lately, and I think there is a major statement that was given by the minority leader, the opposition leader. I don't know, I think that is still okay. Or the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, the ODM party leader. He said that we should prepare for a referendum. He is not saying we prepare for a referendum to fix this problem. So the priorities for this country, and not just the Right Honorable Raila, I think it is all of us, including Parliament. In all countries that Millie Odhiambo has quoted, you will find that the heads of state, if it is in Rwanda, the president there, Kagame, has been very instrumental. When you go to Uganda, you can credit a lot of the achievements of the quota for women to the president Museveni. If you go to South Africa, the same, even for countries that this was not a major expectation because maybe we had different views of those heads of state. Everywhere where a major decision of this magnitude has to be made, the head of state is critical. So what am I saying? And of course, he needs the goodwill of other players. He will need the goodwill of Parliament. They will need the goodwill of other political leaders. However, if you set the right pace, His Excellency the President will have been able to manage this. There have been major constitutional amendments and even some requirements that we get 2/3. We have had a situation where we needed to get 2/3, 233. And we were all moved towards that, and it was managed. Mutula Kilonzo has quoted the Senate recently. They managed to raise 2/3. So the architecture has an issue, but that is why we are proposing an amendment of the Constitution. We are now over that. I don't think we need to go back to Parliament. The Chief Justice cannot, and there is no space or time or room to talk about Parliament getting more time. I agree to that extent with Millie Odhiambo, and you know what? I'm a member of Parliament of a constituency. Millie Odhiambo is a member of Parliament for a constituency. We are only 23. So when we say we are doing badly as a country, that is one of the ways to tell. 23 members of Parliament women out of 290. What ratio is that? Indeed, the improvement to 26%, because I think as a country, we are around 26% is when you include Senate, because Senate has a deficit of just about 3 to 5 members, I think 5 members of the Senate. So I am saying the answer now lies with the Chief Justice. And you see, if we move from that hurdle, then we can go to the next hurdle and leave it to the head of state and decide whether, because the country, obviously it will be very expensive to go to another election, but that is the cost that as a country we need to pay for having an irresponsible parliament. I think this parliament, including the leadership of parliament, has been irresponsible, and therefore if the country will pay a cost. And you see what? I don't think we should now cry to Kenyans. Kenyans gave us the money. It's not the business of Kenyans to implement now this particular issue. It is parliament. So political parties have a big role. And if you listen right now, you will not hear where parties are calling conferences to fix some of these problems, to address the deficit, to address the gender rule. It would be the least a specific agenda of any political party. And even when I know Mutula Kilonzo Jr. has been a big supporter. I think his late father, God bless his soul in peace, started it very well when he brought the first bill. But this same environment is what he faced, and that's why he was not able to move. The Attorney Generals of the Republic of Kenya have never given the head of state the right advice. The advice they have been giving is that it is not possible for the Chief Justice at any time to actually dissolve Parliament. They have been giving the head of state comfort. They have been giving the speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate comfort that that is a major political decision. No Chief Justice would be able to do that. And you know what? The Chief Justice would be doing his constitutional duty if he were to deal with this. The head of state would be executing his constitutional duty if we were to agree with the recommendation by the Chief Justice. And I think if before the courts have cleared with their hurdle, because the courts have given several judgments, we have like 3 orders, 60 days, go and finish with the registration. By this particular year, complete this registration. And Parliament, you see, of course, it's untouchable. Parliament is arrogant, completely arrogant. And that is the language. So when Kaluma sits here in this panel to say that it is not possible, it is not achievable, I with great respect, because Kaluma is a great mind, I think he's not being completely candid to the problem we have. It's just that women do not make, it's not a deal. Women in this country have never been at the table for decision making, and the leadership of this country has not brought women on board, and they are not. I think a political cost would be what will tilt the balance, and a political cost would be, for example, to dissolve Parliament. Earlier on, before maybe we reach where we are, that this matter is before the Chief Justice, I would have thought that the Chief Justice would have possibly made an order, and I'm not saying this to prejudice. I think there should have been a condition that unless Parliament registrates or gives us a solution to this problem within such period, Parliament, he will be recommending to the head of state to dissolve Parliament. So I really clearly, I am amazed that we continue using excuses in a country like this. And if you look at elsewhere, even in the country, other institutions of government, agencies, top agencies in this country, very few are headed by women. Even the ministry, even our cabinet, it's actually short of gender balance, including the same court. How many women do we have in the Supreme Court? To date, we are having also maybe a Supreme Court that is not constitutional. Even women organizations went to court to challenge that. So I want to say that it is not because there is a shortage. It is the change of attitude. And this country has had various heads of state, and they have not moved this country forward in respect of the gender question. And Kenya has been on the front line. It has been, the major conference here has been held. We have gone to all major conferences, regarding women and status of women. Every single year, the country spends money for the Minister of Gender to go and make a presentation in the Commission of Status of Women. And you know what? Some of those reports that we make are not matched by action. Even when we have legislation on our side, then the appointing authorities are not doing their work. And maybe that is enough for me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Wahome. Very, very clear. Is Senator Kilonzo back with us for a final question?
He's not with us. He's not with us.
Senator Kilonzo?
I'm here, yes.
Yes, Senator Kilonzo, just a final question before I hand back to Herine to sample some of the public questions and to wrap up. Listening to you and the fact that your party has achieved parity at 50-50, and that you're the co-sponsor of this bill currently in Senate, I just hoped that you would reflect a little bit on this bill and how you think, or what you think the chances of this bill passing are this time around. I also wanted you to expand your thinking because and to take beyond the two-thirds gender rule into the broader principles of inclusion.
Yeah,
You have disappeared.
Jerotich, come again.
Am I the only one who can't hear?
Jerotich.
I think she's.
Yes. Mutula Kilonzo has lost you.
You have disappeared.
We are here, Jerotich internet. Just answer if you have heard it. Have you heard the question?
The first portion, yes. I don't know about the second one.
Just proceed with the first portion.
I'm so sorry. I'm always sabotaged, Senator. When I'm asking you a question, my line goes off. Did you hear at least the first bit of my question?
The first portion, yes.
And the second bit is really about the principles of inclusion, which is what the two-thirds gender principle is about, and trying to bring that into some of the challenges you're even having in Senate right now around revenue allocation and principles of inclusion. If we begin a slippery slope of excluding certain groups, isn't this an endless hill that we are rolling down, and ultimately the Constitution will not be worth the paper that it's written on? So that was the two-part question, Senator.
I'll start with the second one, because the first one is easy because it's a mathematical figure. The question of, in fact, the narrative should always be, how do we eliminate the spirit of exclusion in Kenya? How do we make everybody feel as if they are part and parcel of this country? How do you make the women feel as if they're supposed to sit on a table and they are not supposed to look as if they are being invited, as if they are guests in Kenya, or it was a mistake for them to be born? In my quest in terms of interrogating this issue, and I think the members of parliament here, including Alice, maybe have seen a book that I collected from IPU. It's called the Atlas of Women All Over the World, and how they have managed to achieve this thing of just having inclusion as part of the conversation, two-thirds or gender parity being part of it. And I was pleasantly surprised to find the name of Senator Beth Mugo as a person who has been acknowledged all over the world for fighting for inclusivity. But isn't it a contradiction that when Beth Mugo finds her name in the acknowledgement of a book called the Atlas of Women of the World, that the same country which she has served faithfully as an MP and now as a senator finds very little regard for the question of inclusion of women? It's a narrative that we must continue building. But the way to do it, and I've said this before, because that was the discussions we had at IPU, was for every man around, either a leader or otherwise, whether in parliament or otherwise, they have a mother, a daughter, a sister. And therefore, they're not talking about abstract things. The minute we think that the person who we want to promote is a sister, or like the way Kathy was almost a senator of Makueni and fought very hard by men. And the minute we think about the person could be your sister, your mother, then you change the narrative. And I want to participate in a conversation where we change the narrative. Once you change the narrative and make it inclusion, because even in the debate we are having in the Senate, it is a very old historical issue of talking about excluding. You are not part of this country. We are more than you. We deserve more than you deserve. As opposed to saying, we found that you have no food on the table. Can you come and share with us those who have? In fact, I have said that I would like to get to a place like in Germany, where after Germany, and I'd like Kenyans to understand the history of West and East, to the extent that the states in the West that are doing so well are supporting the states on the eastern side. So the men of this country need to create a bridge to be the ones walking around with their daughters and their mother on one hand and saying, these are the people who we want as leaders of this country. I think when we get to that conversation, then we are going to make progress. And that conversation must begin at the top. The phobia about women is not a bottom up, it's actually top bottom approach. The minute we deal with that issue, then this question will not arise. I'm telling you that I'm not very optimistic that at the time we are going to be, people will be mobilized about the gender question in the Senate, whether we'll get as much enthusiasm as possible. Because Judith Jenny ended up with, how many? Maybe three or four senators who didn't agree with that bill. But we have less problems in the Senate. I personally have less problems whipping members in the Senate. As a whip, I can tell you, we can manage 40 and speak to our party leaders to get 2 more or 3 more. In the National Assembly, I'm telling you, it's like pushing an elephant in a small hole. It's going to be as much difficult. In fact, that question should go to my colleagues in the National Assembly. What do we do? And I'm going to ask all of you who are advocates for this cause. I know what you did last time, and the text messages sent to our colleagues. Let's find a different way of talking to the men of this country. Sit them in a room, talk to them about their wives, their sisters, their mothers, and how they would like them treated if it was them.
I think you'll comment.
Their sisters or mothers or relatives who are going for this position.
Gosh.
They would like to see the sort of husband I've seen on the
He's saying you give them free massage.
Get into positions in this republic. I hope I've answered your questions, and I want to beg your leave. My good neighbor.
Thank you very much, Senator, for your input. I appreciate it. And I will hand over back to Herine. Thank you so much. And maybe you can carry some final questions and wrap up the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerotich. I'll read a few comments from the Zoom, then I'll ask a question. Honorable members, you will have 2 minutes to answer from the chats online. Then you give your final comments. There is a comment from Priscilla Nyokabi. She says, thanks a lot, panelists, for the debate on the two-third gender rule. It's time we got the third important principle fully implemented across all levels of the government. A comment from Dr. Moni Wekesa. He says this is a very emotional topic, as shown by Honorable Wahome. However, she has failed to propose a workable formula. There is a comment from Professor Dr. Moni Wekesa. He says Parliament is not irresponsible. Parliamentarians found themselves in their guest house after a grueling electoral process. The electorate needs to be bound by specific laws designed to achieve the two-thirds gender rule. There's a comment from Udoni Kihara. She says, Honorable Millie and Honorable Alice, you have made my day today. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So statement, womanship today, so proud of you. I'll go straight to the question. There's a question here directed to Honorable Wahome and Honorable Millie Odhiambo. The question is from Moni Wekesa. Is asking, dissolving parliament now sounds attractive. What happens if the next parliament is still similarly constituted? How do we dissolve parliament without statutory and constitutional guarantee that such a dissolution will help us achieve the desired two-thirds gender rule? Perhaps we can start with you, Honorable Millie, then the same question is answered by Honorable.
What I can tell you, speaking as a politician, not as a lawyer, dissolve parliament, the next parliament will enact it on the first day.
Thank you.
Because they know they will be dissolved. No parliamentarians, that's why you are seeing Honorable Kaluma pitching very seriously, because he does not want to go back at this point to meet the electorates at this point. It's grueling, as somebody has actually said. It's not a walk in the park, whether for men or for women, but especially more difficult for women. Yet the tragedy is that it's actually the women willing to have it dissolved. I am willing to go back to face the men that are already gathering. As I'm speaking here, you should see the activities that they are doing. And now they have decided to come up together. All the ones who don't like me, they are forming committees or united committees against me. But I am willing to go back if we can get the 2/3 through dissolution. But I also want to tell, I want to indicate something, that I want to really, really support Honorable Kaluma for the sentiments that he has said. I mean, I want to congratulate him for the sentiments he said, because his sentiments actually prove, let me remove this a little bit. His sentiments actually prove that Parliament will not go anywhere with this 2/3. Parliament will not pass the 2/3 rule. Because Kaluma tells you, Honorable Kaluma tells you, that he supported us in voting, but not in principle. So what does he do? He stands with that 1 minute of his to speak to all the men very convincingly why they should not support it. Then he says, now you have my vote. But through his words, he has lost 20 men. So how are you supporting us? So if you are relying on Parliament, and Honorable Kaluma has a champion by 1 vote when he's killing 20, then I can tell you this is the chasing of our tails, and there is no solution in Parliament. So I think we need to go back to the judiciary. The answer lies with the judiciary, not with Parliament. And then I would also want to just indicate something, that unfortunately, maybe one of the things that the men talk to me about, and Alice and the others who are 23, because they always try to use that against the other women. They say, but Millie, you are elected. Why can the others be elected like you? I was first nominated. Alice, for her to get in, had to go through harrowing 3, I think, electoral processes with so much drama before she could actually come in. And for other women, it's so traumatizing, they never even try. They don't even want to hear about politics ever again because of what they go through. I've told you I've written about this in my book. My second one is even more harrowing of what I've gone through in politics. But the main reason that the men will not support women is because of our success. That I was nominated and I got elected. That Lesuda was nominated, she got elected. That Leshomo was nominated, she got elected. That Sophia Abdi Nur was nominated, she became the first woman from northern Kenya to be elected single constituency, same to Lesuda. That Honorable Martha, not Karua, the other Martha, the Honorable Martha, Wangare, was also nominated, she has now been elected. So because of that, there is a phobia that when women are given opportunity, like the women who are now for the 47 in the 47 seat, giving people a scare. Look at Mishimboko. She was in 47, now elected single constituency, meaning she took away from a man. Same to Aisha. Gladys Wanga is now vying for governor, and the men are horrified because they thought that was a preserve of men. So that is actually the underlying reason that the men are fearing that there is success in having more women, because we are learning, we are getting empowered, and it's just basically making sure that you continue excluding us. So I think let the judiciary act.
Thank you very much. Honorable Alice Wahome, same question to you. What solutions are we proposing before we dissolve Parliament?
I'm not willing to give any solutions before we dissolve Parliament. That is falling into the same problem that we have. There is no need of solution. The solution is the justice. It's supposed to be implementing the Constitution just like everybody else. When you talk about going back to a solution in Parliament or somewhere else, no, because where we are with this thing, we have given you a list of bills. From Senate, 2 bills, National Assembly, a bill by several bills, about 4 or 5 bills. And even now, you hear there are other bills pending. So let's not time anymore. Dissolve Parliament, I agree, let us go back to the ground. There is nothing emotional about this thing. Well, there is a comment about that I'm being emotional and I'm not giving solutions. I have given a solution to dissolve parliament. I don't believe in any other solution for the And you know what? The next parliament that comes after this one is dissolved, the first business, I agree with the meeting, the first business order of business is unless while dissolving parliament or recommending the Chief Justice can even express himself in that regard. So that the first business would be to amend the Constitution and provide for this. And of course, political parties will be forced to ask what the parties are doing. The next parliament, the political parties will make sure, because it's also very tough for political parties to conduct elections, you know that. And you see, it's a competition. How many members will you bring in parliament? So the next parliament would be constitutional because political parties will now go back to their political party manifestos and codes of conduct and remove all those things that, you know, make women go back. They will also give women safe seats in terms of constituencies. I mean, look, the battle of Millie has gone through. You know, we don't need to be told that it is tough, it is rough, it's not supposed to be easy. I don't know why. When we are supposed to be doing neat and clean politics setting issues, we are fighting a heap of group of men who come together. Millie, I'm glad you are sharing my experience. Every election that I have won, but every of those elections, men come together. They form a club against one person, and it's Wahome. And you know, so, and I hear Millie saying now they are also gathering around one club. And I think she will make it back again. So the question of another formula, all these mechanisms that were lost in Parliament had the formula, they had the answer. Had they gone through, we would have brought in women mid-term or halfway, somewhere in between. Because we were also going to ensure that if we had amended the Constitution this particular term and even last term, then the political parties would bring in on board women depending pro rata to their strength in the House, you know, the number of members that they had the last general elections. So let us not mark time anymore. We will not change Parliament. There is no need to beg Parliament. And you see, there are several orders. Let us dissolve it. I do not think there is any other solution.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Alice Wahome. Perhaps the final question to Honorable Kaluma, you have been mentioned that you are supporting this agenda with both sides of your mouth. You are voting this way, but your discussion on the other side is not in support of the third gender rule. What is your comment on that?
Yeah, on matters concerning the rights of women and matters concerning the rights of children, I think I'm only second to Honorable Millie Odhiambo in the two parliaments in which I've served. In fact, so much so that even some legislative proposals I've brought have been misunderstood. You remember, Honorable Millie, how we lost the Children's Amendments Bill, which was something we sat with you and Honorable Soipan Tuya, and you said I would be the best to follow. And we were losing it because the women members themselves never understood what we were doing. We were doing, and I thank Honorable Judith Ongori, if I may call her so, because I think she's more honorable than most of us. Even against the article saying this guy is merely bringing Article 53 into the Children's Act so that both children born within marriage and out of marriage can enjoy equal rights as provided in, 1 minute and it was dead. And I can tell you, therefore, that from that alone, you see the problem we have. Parliament is not an institution that is rational, logical in its decision-making. And I think that is the weakness that all of you are alive to. Honorable Millie will tell you, you can decide this is your position, but you reach the House, pap, and the whip tells you the party position is this. Rational or irrational, you go that direction. And that is how every democratic institution, of course, operates. I am not given to lamentation myself. I want to proffer two solutions which my colleagues are not seeing. Fellow members of the Law Society and the people of Kenya, it is lawful to petition to dissolve Parliament. And it will be lawful if Parliament is dissolved. But I'm advising, as a person who has experienced the challenges, the practical challenges around the realization of this thing, that it is not, to me, the right approach to take. I wanted to request the society, being the society which stands for the rule of law in the country and the safeguarding of public interest on matters law, sit with us. You see the arguments we are having currently. All panelists are not giving you a solution, except Honorable Millie at the start. She is lost towards the end. And myself consistently, because you remember Honorable Millie said that let us go the party list. It is being drowned. I tell you, the moment you hit the ground,
Your mic.
yes, the moment you, let me to switch it off.
It's on.
Yes. The moment you hit the ground,
This one.
we need as a society, beyond proposing the legislative intervention, which is, in my view, rationalized.
Yes.
It's not on.
It's not.
Let us as a society come with solutions. And I can tell you, if you are following Article 27, sub-Article 7, then it is legislative. If it is redesigning the electoral system, then it will be a human rights issue requiring a referendum. So don't say, is BBI going to include? Take your agenda as the women of this country to the BBI table. And nobody says that Constitution can only be amended through BBI. If BBI is not able and is not willing to incorporate what you believe is the solution, come up with your own Constitution amendment initiative. And that everybody is entitled. The Law Society is very big enough and can do it. Let me end by telling you what is happening in Parliament currently. I don't know whether the Constitution Amendment Bill by Honorable Shollei lapsed or it is still there. The one which was seeking to implement the agenda. Hoping it is still, there for consideration. I want to tell you there is another one by Honorable Sankok, who is a nominated member of Parliament on the category of disability, a section of our country which is also crying for representation, and nobody is talking for them, as the women, of course, are talking about their issues. But I can tell you, even the 5% for disability is not there. Honorable Sankok has a legislative proposal, which we passed when Honorable Alice Wahome was the Vice Chair of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, and is undergoing publication currently, in which he's saying, unless we are coming with an electoral design that will enable the population, the people of Kenya, meet the gender quota, let us remove the 2/3 gender requirement for elective seats. And I can tell you that sitting in the committee, when Honorable Alice was still our Vice Chair, it is a legislative proposal which passed very quickly. And I imagine, unless we intervene as fast as possible, then because we are not proffering a quick solution to the stalemate, you can imagine what members of Parliament will do if on one hand you have a petition to dissolve them, and on other you have this as a bill. You know what will happen? Maybe first. So I'm requesting you to come together and proffer solutions, not lamentations. I know I'm very unpopular, but I came to be unpopular, but to tell you the practical ways of realizing this thing. And I can tell you, look at all countries. Honorable Millie, you say we are doing badly. Which country in Europe is at 26% like that? We are above all of them.
No, we are doing Sweden.
We are above all of them.
So is Finland.
Yeah, maybe Sweden, Scandinavian countries, but
We're in Africa.
Where is it? So which country is competing as in Australia, in Canada, down the Americas? Which one is at our level at 26%? What I'm saying is that there is progress, but we can, with practical solutions, led by the Law Society, helping us, what do we tincture with to realize this thing, reach it? other than giving us a platform to come and say, I have been a better advocate than Honorable so and so on this thing. It don't work. I can tell you, Honorable Millie, you will confide to our colleagues. The only party leader who is consistent with gender is my party leader. I think that is our luck in Odhiambo. Every time we have had occasion to vote on this gender issue, Raila comes with his family and sits there. Another occasion he came, you remember how he was treated. In fact, nobody even recognized him, just to jolt the mood of the members. And Honorable Millie will tell you, you have a case against a lady or a woman with Raila as a judge, you lose it before the case begins. Honorable Millie, you know it. Now, that consistency is not in the entire hierarchy up there. And that consistency, in terms of literacy, is not with our people. Let the Law Society of Kenya, through its Legal Awareness Committee, go and educate Kenyans there. You go to Kakamega, collect all Western Kenya, you go to Eldoret, as we did, Herine Kabita, and they tell you, now you want positions for your girlfriends. Sisi ndio tunachagua, you are not the ones electing. In fact, in Kakamega, when we sat with the entire Western, we were nearly being chased from the hall. They say, oh, sasa sisi ndio tunachagua, wewe unakuja hapa kutafuta nafasi ya your girlfriends. The way you are doing MCS. Kwenda, that one we will not even discuss. And we were narrowed to other issues. So the level of civic literacy is still, narrow. The enlightened like you and I know the importance of inclusion around gender and other sectors of the society. Take it down there, so that as we fight for this formula in Parliament, the numbers can continue increasing the way they have been increasing. And Honorable Millie, in the last Parliament, it was 16%, isn't it? Currently, it is 20-something%. But also study something in the members of Parliament who are elected at constituency level, which Honorable Millie, unfortunately, is not telling you. The large percentage of them are daughters of Kenya who went and sought elections in their places of birth, not places of marriage. What is the issue? Why is it easy for us to elect Millie back at home in Homa Bay? And I can tell you, let them come together. Honorable Millie will be the MP for Suba North for as long as she wants. Those men fear. That is why they're not running. But why is it easy for us to elect Honorable Millie Odhiambo as MP for Suba North, not electing Honorable Wanga for a constituency MP in Homa Bay, your governor? Those are the realities we are talking about. Look at all of them. The majority are people who went back home. Why? Limited civic education, limited legal education. Our work as members of the Law Society, therefore, is cut for us beyond petitioning the dissolution of Parliament. But dissolve Parliament, as you also help us, those who know where the problem is, come with the law to make it possible that when we send Parliament for election, we will have gender balance upon election. If you do dissolve Parliament before we change the electoral design, you may turn up with the worst, proportions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kaluma. I don't know whether Honorable Mutula Kilonzo is still with us. No, he's not. I'll now ask our panelists to give their final comments, 1 minute each, then we finish. Sorry, questions. Do we have any questions from those with us physically? Comments? Yes, Dudley, you could speak up on the podium.
I think the solution to this thing is within the political parties, as has been said repeatedly today. Millie was elected on the ODM ticket, Wanga ODM ticket. If you go to Nyeri, the women elected there are elected on the dominant party's political ticket. So if IBC said, for example, that for the National Assembly election, every party contesting must have a third nationally and a third within the county. Migori has 6 constituencies, 2 are women on the ODM ticket. Nyeri has 6 constituencies, 2 of those are women on the Jubilee ticket. They'll get in. If you take those numbers and add them to the 47 who are already there and the 6th nominated, you'll get the numbers. Because the Senate, for example, we just had about 2 left for the thing to be achieved. Then you repeat that for the ward elections. If a constituency has 12 wards, for example, 3 of those are women. I mean, so that political parties also don't give women nomination in the weak areas. You have ODM nominating women in Eastern, for example, where it has no following. And there's also the issue of the independent candidates and the political parties fund. It's meant to facilitate the election of women. I think if we push IEBC, because we don't even need to go to parliament for these, under Article 81, IEBC already has a duty to regulate the process by which political parties nominate candidates. So I think the solution is with the IEBC and it's with the political parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dudley. We can now have, welcome.
I think I'll be doing a disservice to the women of Kenya if I do not speak and respond to all the things that Honorable Kaluma has been saying, all those solutions that you are proposing, all those suggestions that you are telling us to do. I think as a women of this country, we've tried, we've done them, and they've not yielded any result. And that's why we are resorting to a legislative mechanism that will then allow us, because for us, we appreciate the challenges and the barriers that women continue to face in regards to political. And for us, that's why the constitution and legal frameworks must be put in place to assist women. We understand our social norms, we understand the attitudes that are there, but it is upon the state to ensure that these rights are also enjoyed by women. Thank you.
We can now have our final comments from our panelists, beginning with Honorable Millie. 1 minute.
Thank you. Maybe I'll just, there's a lot that I could be saying to what Honorable Kaluma has said, but again, the solutions that he's giving us is the chasing the tail again. That you tell us, or let us find solutions, which we will not find. Then he says if it dissolves, then we will come back when it's unconstitutional. But I've told you that the moment the Chief Justice would pronounce himself like on Monday, Tuesday there would be such a thing. But of course I know the judiciary is very scared. But I want to speak about the issue of, that's the truth. The judiciary is very scared about taking very bold actions. Because really, what does the law say? The law says dissolve. And that's what should have been done like 10 years ago. Now, what I wanted to conclude with is the issue that Honorable Kaluma has said, that because this requires a paradigm shift, we are taking the wrong approach, which is top-heavy and not from the grassroots. And I want to tell you, Honorable Kaluma, that when I started my practice in FIDA, in 1997, I took up a case on domestic violence where a lady took the husband to court because he had beaten her. And I can tell you, my office had to set up a place for me to receive international and, everybody. I had to receive international and local news or other media, because they had never heard of a woman taking the husband to court because he had beaten her. It was not heard of. And even when I went to NYU, one of my classmates showed me in our international, the text that we are doing on international human rights, that the matter was actually now a case study in New York University. It's an international human rights book. Why? Because at that time it was unheard of for a woman to beat, for a woman to take the husband to court because he has beaten her. Now, we are a few years later. If a woman takes the husband to court because he's beaten her, even the neighbors don't comment, because it's normal. Women take husbands to court. Why? We took a top-heavy approach, but we also created awareness. We were always on the ground talking about rights, rights, rights. That approach is very dangerous, especially when we are talking about issues of child marriages, because then we'll be telling people, it's okay, our communities are used to marrying 10-year-olds and 13-year-olds, so don't take them to court. Because I remember even a case I did in Kajiado, where the entire Maasai community came over when we were taking somebody to court, and they asked me, has Honorable Saitoti heard that you are taking us to court because we have married a young girl, because we took him there to make sure that he protects our culture? And he said, no, this is beyond Honorable Saitoti, may his soul rest in peace. But if we take that approach that you are saying, where we are saying because we can't do a paradigm shift using the law, we must use a carrot and stick approach in change of perceptions on issues, especially that are discriminatory of minority groups. And I've said minority groups, if you push them on referendum on a standalone issue, it is not the way to go. It has never been the way to go. And I can assure you that if Olen Sankok's matter comes to Parliament, we will use the air, sky, earth, land, every means to make sure that it fails. And I just want to tell Honorable Mutula Kilonzo, if he's still there, because he was saying we need to use a different approach to talk to the male MPs. I can tell you when we came in I don't know if it was on the 10th or the 11th Parliament, we even held dinners, danced Dombolo and Azonto with the male members, but they still can't pass. We have done everything humanly possible to do with the male members, except the immoral ones. But we have done everything possible to do with the male members to make sure that they pass, and they have failed to do. Dissolve Parliament.
Thank you. Final comments?
I'll be very brief speaking after my learned senior Honorable Millie. Odhiambo also said she is my niece, so I find difficulty engaging on matters she knows better.
Okay.
Is it on? I want to tell us, more so the female gender, that nothing comes easy. If you are seated there waiting to get your quota through being doled out under the principle, you will not. I want us, as we are fighting, I want women like Seii, my sister, to run for a constituency. I mean, run like my niece, Honorable Millie Odhiambo. Run like Alice Wahome.
How many are willing to be undressed?
That happens. We also have cases where it is the women undressing people. In fact, and they are becoming more rampant. IEBC will tell you that today women are beating men and you fear going to report. In fact, the roles are reversed. Let us fight for that. For the Law Society of Kenya, thank you for the honor to engage the membership and the country on this important matter. How I request that we intensify this so that we can change the mindset and focus on what we can do really to ensure, as President Obama said when he was here last time, that you have both sides of the team playing. I came here myself not to lament. I came not to appear good. But I came as a lawyer, as one of you, to give you my insights about the laws through my experiences in the committee, which has been, babying this thing, engaging also in public participation to give you the true feelers, and therefore the hurdles you need to surmount or the bumps you need to straighten for us to realize this matter. I remain available on call with the society. If you can task a team to help with a solution around it, I would be very glad, and I will give you my insights beyond helping to draft. But as I've said, the solution is in changing our electoral design. It may not be that we change the whole thing to party list system. We may as well say, leave the 290 constituencies as they are, but to meet the gender quota, have this number so that the parties share them based on their numbers at elections. That will be mixed proportionate representation, where you have first past the post and a bit of party list to meet whichever gender has worked. And let me tell the Kenyans outside there, in our society of lawyers today, the ladies are the dominant in our council.
we achieved it without stipulating those 2/3 gender things. We achieved it because our best members among the female gender came forth and voting together, both male and women and female members, we voted them in. We are looking at a society where in future, everybody, including the president, is going to be a woman, and we love it. So let us fight in as much as we look at, what legal interventions we can also make to realize it for the less enlightened Kenyan population outside there. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Alice Wahome, your final comments.
Okay, thank you very much. I will start by why we were called to this virtual conference. I remember the loss of...
Oops. No, she's coming back. She's coming back.
Those are the challenges of
Yes, it's well done. So, yeah. It's a very good discussion to keep it on. Oh.
In the morning, I kept coming in She was coming to
no, it's important it be dissolved then.
But I'm still here, so don't be happy.
What happened? We need to conclude. We were almost concluding. Let's tell her. Mercy, CEO, there's a proposal you take Machakos town. She's Senator Makueni.
And we have decided already.
You? So we do what?
Yes.
So what do we do?
So we'll call and then plug her in to the speaker.
Okay, we're just concluding. Yes. So sorry, Ivan.
Is it not true that for fear in terms of publicity created around gender, today we are beaten more by women than we beat women? Because it is all of
it is not actually true that we are more beaten by women. It's just that the few men that are beaten are willing, some few men that are beaten are willing to come up. But otherwise, the women, if you actually see what women are still going through, it's horrible. There's even one somebody sent me here. But I couldn't remember the name because I thought I would save it, but by the time I came back later, it was...
It is socialization.
Somebody banned the private parts of her.
I can see her. Oh, Alice, she's back.
She's still talking. She doesn't know we are not hearing.
Alice is talking. We are back. We are not hearing her.
We are not hearing her. Alice, we are not hearing you. Alice, we are not hearing you.
They refuse to comment on that.
No.
But I'll tell on you.
No, what's for sure, of course, there are still societal issues.
And Alice is really talking.
You want to give your good friends?
She's talking to Pekeke.
No, she'll come again, oh yeah.
And she has spoken so much.
This is divine intervention.
And I knew she was going to come on you very heavy.
I know she's hitting me.
Honorable Alice.
That has actually
hearing
could have been instrumental in
Honorable Alice, I
it
don't
is
know.
still a
She's
state
not hearing
action
us.
to ensure
Is she hearing
that
us?
the gender quota is satisfied. It's not the women business. But
Honorable Alice.
women have lobbied, they have been there, they have supported, and I want to tell Kaluma, it is not true. When we went for what the Duale Bill 2, I was leading the team in Isiolo, Nyeri, and in Nakuru, Nyeri, and Isiolo for the public participation for that particular gender bill. And the results were that people were agreeing with what they had said on 27th of August 2010. Kaluma, we did a lot of awareness, and what we are supposed to be doing now is not going to educate people. It's not going to talk about this matter. It's to implement. And it is not in the arena of the public. I agree with you, it is parliament. It is in the arena of parliament. The people of Kenya express themselves through the promulgation of the Constitution on this specific issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Alice. Thank you so much. Our panelists, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, Honorable Kaluma, Honorable Alice, those who were here but have left. Thank you. I now want to invite our representative, Senior Roslyn Odede, to give us a vote of thanks. Then thereafter, the President will make comments as we wind up. Thank you. Over to you, Senior Odede.
Thank you very much, Herine. Thank you, the panelists, for this afternoon. Good evening, everyone. I must say, and I'm sure you all agree with me, it's been an awesome day. We've had very, very stimulating conversations. And for that, I want to thank, one, the LSK Council, led by President Happy, for steering this. This is good leadership. I want to thank the Gender Committee for coming up with this process, and I thank you, Chair Beth Michoma. I'd like to thank the LSK Secretariat, led by Masi Wambua, for putting everything together and making this work. It's been a very, very organized conference today, and we thank you. I've been online the whole day and I haven't been tired, so that speaks for the quality of the conference and what went through. I would like to thank our stellar cast of panelists. It's been a very, very inspiring conversation because of the kind of panelists we had today. We had members of parliament, we had civil society, we had senior counsel, and of course we had Emeritus Chief Justice William Mutunga. So a very, very stellar cast there. And we thank all of our panelists who came across today. I can't forget our sponsors. Our sponsors for today are, we have SAD, we have Global Affairs Kandara, and we have CREW. We thank you all so much because you contributed to making this day a great success. So thank you very, very much. Thanking all our service providers as well. Everything has gone well as intended, so you did a good job too. Thank you. And we thank the audience and all the members of the Law Society who took time to tune in and listen to this broadcast. I think this has been a very momentous conference. LSK has now tolled the bell, the horse has bolted, and Parliament needs to play catch up by quickly enacting the relevant law. I think we need to amend Article 97 and 98 by inserting a clause similar to Articles 177. Otherwise, the life of Parliament and its days are numbered. And I'm sure this Parliament, as Honorable Millie said, doesn't want to go down in history as a Parliament that was sent to home. So do the right thing now when you have the chance, or it shall be a different story. I am one of those people who firmly believe that you can only achieve a true democracy if everybody is represented. And if if Kenyan women are 52% of the population, as we were told earlier today, then we cannot call ourselves a democracy when 52% of the population are not at the table or are not at the decision-making table. I think LSK is a great example of what the presence of both gender or some gender in the council, the difference it can make. Before we had more women in council, we were not able to hold a conference of this nature. But because for the first time we have a council that's heavily women against men, you can see what steps we are taking, what strides we are moving to. So having a parity in representation is very, very crucial because it gets the voices heard, it gets the issues heard. So it is important what we are doing. We are not doing this for the Law Society, we are doing this for Kenyans. And Parliament should also do the right thing. I think as a Law Society, we need to build a culture of constitutionalism. Parliament has failed us, and there's no mincing of words. The panelists this afternoon were very, very clear and categorical that dissolution of Parliament is the way to go. So leaving this conference, I think that's the rallying call. Chief Justice should do what he needs to do so that Parliament needs to be dissolved. The President, when he gets that, has no choice but to act. So he has no two ways around it. Once the Chief Justice sends it, we want to see Parliament dissolved. And one of the things we need to do as a Law Society is to come up with the script of this conversation, all the discussions we had today, and share it with the Chief Justice. So he knows that these sentiments are shared by more than just us at the Law Society of Kenya. Thank you all very much and have a blessed weekend. Asante.
Thank you very much. The President will give us his comments, then we finalize.
Kenyans, friends, learned friends, I can see my able Vice President from Alliance is very happy. When will the golf tournament for Alliance girls? Is it today or tomorrow?
22nd.
Oh, 22nd. Honorable Kaluma, my very good friend. Honorable Millie, Odhiambo, my very good auntie. Thank you so much for remaining with us until the end of this conference. Kenyans, friends, learned friends, Plato said this, good people do not require laws for them to act responsibly, but bad people will find a way around the laws. Well, do you think we are good or bad people?
We are good.
Well, I think every living human being is a bad person, because if he or she was a good person, then we wouldn't have the law in the first place, and we wouldn't have lawyers. So let us admit we are bad people. That's the reason why we need the law. However much will go around the law will always be there. And it is our responsibility as lawyers, it is our responsibilities as the Law Society of Kenya to uphold the law. And it is for that reason, therefore, that today's conference is the hallmark of more than 40 years of struggle. Others may trace the struggle to 10 years, but I think it's about 40 years. I know Kaluma doesn't mean harm when he says the President of the Law Society of Kenya is a modern day Akuku Danger. I honestly believe if Moses had 10 women with him on his way to Canaan, his boat will not have been swallowed by the crocodile, and they will have reached Canaan. You better listen to me, and listen to me carefully, because from the look of things, it is most likely that I'll be the last male president of the Law Society of Kenya. No wonder, therefore, Honorable Kaluma said, even as we battle equally, the women must prepare to take over. But even as we wait for them to take over, we, all of us, men and women, must uphold the rule of law. Millie Odhiambo has said rightfully that the judiciary is always fearful. And this we have said time without number. But it's not just the judiciary. This is how we categorize the three arms of government. The executive, overbearing. The legislature, emasculated. The judiciary, weakened. By the way, we have three arms of government. Where do the people fit in these arms? Well, the people are the government. No wonder, therefore, the Constitution is emphatic that the sovereignty of this nation belongs to the people. And it's for that reason that the drafters of the Constitution deemed it fit to have an inbuilt mechanism within the Constitution to resolve this stalemate. And that inbuilt mechanism is Article 261, sub-Article 7. And as we have always said from this side of lawyers, we have rested this case. It's not a matter that requires further judicial interpretation. It is a matter where the only outstanding issue is an administrative act by two individuals. One, the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, and two, the President of the Republic of Kenya. And you've heard from the horses themselves, not rats, not donkeys, not zebras. The horses themselves have said they are ready, willing, and able to go back to the sovereign, the people. Kenyans, friends, learned friends, what else does the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya and the President of the Republic of Kenya want before they do the correct thing? May I thank you all most sincerely for participating in this conference. It is my honest belief that this file shall be closed and we should not be required to have another conference. And if at all we'll be required to have another conference, let us have a conference where the affirmative action then will be to ensure that the 2/3 gender rule or the 1/3 requirement is being pushed for affirmatively in favor of the male gender. But for now, let the law take its course. Be blessed. God bless the Law Society of Kenya. God bless the people of Kenya. Let the rule of law prevail now and forever. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. No, you are no, go with it, go with it. Thank you so much. You're done well, thank you. I think yeah, you have it on your belt.
Yeah, you come to imagine. Yeah, there is a dignitary signed a treaty. And then,
how do you do it?
Thank you, colleagues, for joining us physically here throughout the day. But I know you all agree with us that it's been worth the while. Very interesting discussions have taken place. So it will be good for us to say a word of prayer and thank God for His mercies and grace. We could pray. Lord Heavenly Father, we take this moment to appreciate you for taking care of us throughout the day. Lord, as we started, we prayed that, Lord, you see us through this great day. We thank you for our speakers, Lord. You've given them wisdom. They have been able to speak very well on this topic. We thank you for the members of public, our members of the Law Society of Kenya, the Council of the Law Society of Kenya, our sponsors and partners, our suppliers and providers for services today. Thank you, Lord. As we leave this place, we pray that, Lord, you'll continue to bless us. Dear Heavenly Father, we will not forget to ask you, Lord, that you will you grant the Chief Justice and the President of the Republic of Kenya wisdom to deal with this matter. We pray all this, trusting and believing.
Amen.
Amen. We'll have a group photo, the council and speakers, and then we'll have one with the members.
See what it was.